Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. I have another fabulous guest with us today. But before we jump right in, couple housekeeping things. Make sure you are following this podcast. It makes such a difference. And if you have ideas, send them to me because I do not want to assume I know what you need. I want to hit the nail on the head. So please tell me what you're interested in and what you'd like to see next on Productive Joy. But today you are in for such a treat. I have Miss Denise Rupert with me, and Denise is a whole lot of things. Besides being my dear friend, she is also an avid adventurer. She is a cave crawler. She is a brain enthusiast, an advocate for the underdog. She's a Harvard student, but also an HBCU grad. She's a hidden historian, and she's the founder and CEO of IQ. And I am really excited to have this conversation with you, Denise. Welcome to Productive Joy.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited and ready to produce some productive joy.
Let's do it. So Denise, here's the reality. People will only listen for the first 30 seconds or so before they're like, oh, or no, not interested. So can you tell us in about 30 seconds or so exactly why people would want to listen to this particular podcast?
Oh, wow. This particular podcast will help us see us, right? Looking at how we can be bold. People use the word, oh, you should be bolder. You should be this. And thinking about what bold means in the traditional sense and how that really didn't describe many of us. I'm not bold. I'm not that kind of person. Today, we're going to talk about how you really can be bold and embrace that boldness and become a bolder, like a Swiftie, right?
Become a boulder. Ooh, I want to be a boulder. So Denise, I am ready. And I know that my listeners are too. So tell us a little bit more about, let's back up. I want you to tell us about your brain research first, because you know so much about what's going on in our head that allow us to be bold. So let's start there. Tell us about what you're learning about how our minds work.
It's amazing how when we're in situations, there are these books we read and checklists and tests that we take to see what type of leader we are and what kind of person am I. Am I an introvert or extrovert? When we go, oh, no, I'm a hidden introvert or extrovert. But sometimes we often get hidden behind a mask. And I remember when I was teaching middle school, 6th grade, when I was in elementary, every day we would repeat Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem, We Wear the Mask. And in the early lines of that poem, he talks about how we wear a mask to hide our grins and our fears, right? We wear a grin to hide our fears and smiles and things like that. And it was like, as an adult, we continue to wear those masks. And as we're wearing those masks, our brain begins to adapt to that part of us, that non-reality, right? And that's where you get these pseudo phenomenons from. That's where you get people who believe one thing but really feel something else. And that's where you get people with high functioning anxiety, because we've sat in a space where we've tried to press through a situation. And the more we do it, we reshape how our brain fires and connects dots for us. So thinking about how to be bold, some people can see that as like traumatizing, while other people will be like, yeah, I own it. And so it kind of just relates back to the entire process of why and how we can be bold in the non-traditional sense of the word.
Okay, so I know that BOLD also is an acronym, and I would love for you to share with the listeners kind of what you mean when you say be bold, because I think you're right. I think if I think about being bold, I think about being outgoing or being loud or being the person who speaks first. But I think there's so much more to being bold. So tell us more.
Yeah, so I was literally in the shower. Water is one of those things that makes your brain trigger, right? And that's why people love oceans and water and lakes. So there is a reason why your brain responds differently when it's around water. So I'm in the shower, literally, and I'm playing with the word be bold, be bold. And what does that really mean? And it goes like, you've got to believe, right? You've got to believe that you're enough, that you have what it takes. You got to just believe that, right? And then the O was like owning our own fears and traumas and things like that. And then the L is once we own it, we've got to leave it, because if we continue to carry it, we can't regenerate. So there's a part of brain research around neuroplasticity, right? Where the brain can literally recreate like a tree. Like if there's a tree and it's growing, there are roots under the bottom of it. When the roots start to die, the tree eventually dies, right? Neuroplasty says that in your brain, you can create new pathways. You can create new ways for the dendrites to start connecting to give new energy, right? So when you think about like a person who's had a stroke and they're relearning to talk or relearning to walk, it's because the brain is saying, wait a minute, this is a new routine and I need to refire to make this work. So as we're coming through, as we grow, we're looking at trauma, life experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. And those are sometimes the things we've had to leave because they create the anxiety that we have. They create the fears that we get. They create all these other things that become barriers. And then the D stands for deciding I can do it. So it's like, after I believe it, after I own it, after I leave that stuff that I need to leave behind, I decide today that I can do this. And that's the opportunity to help expand how we function every day. And the more you do it, the more your brain believes it. And it actually makes those connections so that you can be successful with that.
So I'm hearing that this could be a learned behavior, and that if I am not bold by nature, right? And I'm putting nature in air quotes for those of you that can't see me, but I'm hearing that it is possible to learn how to be bold, how to believe, own it, leave it, and then decide what you're going to do with that new information. How the heck are we learning? Like, how does one learn to be bold?
Oh my gosh. Well, to the research, right? When you're thinking about our beliefs, it is your brain wants to believe. There's a part of your brain that it's necessary to have a belief pattern. That the brain is the believing is the mental representation of ways your brain expects things. So like your brain automatically expects something. It automatically wants it. So believing is that output. I believe that water is wet. It's expecting water to be wet. So when you touch water, it's wet, right? So it's about how you shift and think about believing as a natural part of your brain processing. If you don't have an opportunity to believe, you become stagnant. So just like stagnant water, there's no growth. And you then don't have the opportunities. When we stop believing in ourselves and in the possibilities and in our future, then that's when we create this part of our brain where it becomes the negative, where it becomes that same story, that same song, because I don't believe anything else can change. I don't believe that I can be different. I don't have that faith, right? If you translated the word into a religious term. That is why believing is necessary, because your brain actually wants you to believe. So that's the positivity about it. It wants you to look at life and see that template of it could be, it should, I believe it can be. And that's why we're always telling our kids and people, oh, just believing yourself, believing yourself. Well, it's necessary because your brain expects you to. So that is the first perspective when it comes to believing and how the brain is that trigger. Because it's like, you need water to live. You need to have belief to be successful in moving forward.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm thinking about Carol Dweck's work and the whole growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And fixed mindset says that you're stuck and this is the best you're ever going to be. And a growth mindset says, no, actually, I'm not there yet. And that's what you really just said to me, was that we need to believe that we're not there yet. And in whatever it is, right? I believe that today's going to be a good day. I know you've heard me say it a million times. Today's a good day to have a good day. And if you choose to focus on the good, that's what you're going to see. So I really, really relate to your beat. So once you believe, though, how do I own it? Like, I mean, okay, great, but how do I make that happen?
So when you're owning something, right, you have to accept it for what it is. You can't create it. You can't hide it from yourself. It's hard to thyself be true. It's hard to hide from yourself. You can pretend for a little while, but then that reality sets back in, right? So when you're owning, you have to admit or acknowledge that something is the case. It is what it is, and be okay. That's the part of the journey where sometimes we struggle owning our own stuff, owning the narrative, owning the failures, owning the divorce, owning the lost job, owning whatever that thing is that we sometimes want to hide because it hurts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really doesn't make you feel great, right? But you have to own that experience happened, because otherwise you just create another layer, another mask to put on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put this mask on because I'm never going to own that I grew up in a single parent home, or I'm never going to own that I've been divorced 6 times. I'm never going to own. And the more mask you put on, the more you hide from your own self.
Yeah.
And so when you're showing up to be bold, it's literally necessary to say, this happened. This is what I learned from what happened, or I didn't learn from what happened. But I'm owning the moment so that it doesn't become my everyday reality.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get caught in a circle, right? I hear people often say, oh, when I was a kid, this happened to me. And I do it. And my therapist said, but you're owning it like it's true. Because sometimes we lean into that one negative comment. One person said, oh, I remember when this happened. And we take it as a truth, and it becomes a part of our narrative.
Yeah.
So we have to own the narratives that we create, and then own the narratives that are actually the narrative, right? You have to go through the cycle. Something happens, you process. Either you allow the narrative to make it come and be your truth, or you go, wait a minute, that's not this moment. That's not reality. Let me recycle it, right? And let us create the new neuroplasty of the event. This happened like this before, but that's not this moment. So when we're owning who we are and what we are, owning our fears, owning our desires, I own that I deserve a beautiful life. I own that. In my office, I have this panoramic picture. It's very big. It's probably, I think it's 8 feet, but it covers most of my wall. And every day in my office, I see it, but I was like, that needs to be my window. So I own desire, and now I'm driving to it. So it can be something negative that you need to own and let go, or it can be something that you're owning because you want to bring it to you, right? But the opportunity is taking stock of what it is and facing it.
Yeah.
Another step to being bold.
Well, and I think that clearly leads into L, because we need to decide which things we're going to leave. And I think the number one thing I'm learning about myself is I get to choose how I feel. I get to choose which things I hold on to. I get to choose which narrative I listen to. And it reminds me of something you taught me about systems 1 and systems 2 thinking as well, because our systems 1, and correct me if I'm wrong, our systems 1 is really about our knee-jerk reaction, our implicit bias. It's soldered to our brain. This is the way we react to something naturally. And then you have the opportunity to go, well, not going to react that way. I'm going to think in my systems 2 thinking, which allows us to take our experiences and what we know to be true and what we want to be. Right. And is that where the leave it comes in?
It's definitely the lead in. So Dr. Daniel Kettleman's work around system 1, system 2, thinking fast, slow, it is that opportunity, because naturally the brain holds it. It's the file cabinet. Every experience is there. Every narrative, every emotion is there. Right. If you were ever chased by a dog as a kid, you bring that with you. Sure. Am I going to decide this dog, this little chihuahua, is as big as the dog that chased me? Am I going to let that lead in why, oh, I can't do dogs. Oh, I don't do dogs because when I was sick, right? When we create these places where we don't go away from something, we don't allow something to exit, nothing else can get in the space, right? It's just like emptying in a trash can. If you continue to put stuff in and you never empty it, it's just piling up. And what happens when we allow trash to pile up, right?
Yeah.
The smell, the bug, like those are the same things with our emotions. When we allow those negative emotions to pile up and build, it's very hard for you to break through to see that that's not my current reality. That's not this moment in time. That's not what's happening to me now. Yes, it happened, but I'm leaving that where it happened and allowing myself to create my new narrative. So if we never leave anything, our false narratives, those negative emotions, we never get past it, because a lot of stuff is self-inflicted. My dad died in 2020, and I had a major accomplishment and I said, oh, my dad would say blah, 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 blah. And then the person I was speaking to said, what'd you say? I said, yeah. He would say, Denise did it this, did it this, did it this. And then the person said, where's your dad? And I was like, my dad is deceased. And they said, but you just embodied what he said to you X number of years ago. And after I repeated what I thought my dad would say, I had to own that I said it. And I've never left it. I never left those emotions connected to my father where they were.
Wow.
And I had to sit in the moment to go like, I've got to leave that because daddy's not here anymore. And those words can't hurt me anymore if I let them go.
Right.
If I leave them where they were in that moment in time when that happened.
Well, I'm thinking about our listeners. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the vulnerability and the relatability of what you just said, because I think people hurt us because we let them with their words, with their actions, and we hang on and they're unaffected, right? They've moved on.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking about our listeners. I'm thinking about the fact that they are leaders in their space, whatever their space is. And they're dealing with people who need to be bold, who need to believe and own it and leave it and then decide what they're going to do. We haven't gotten to the D yet, but we're going to. So the idea behind this bold concept, can you translate it into work as we talk about the decide to like, how do you see leaders knowing this and getting to transform people from owning their narrative in a negative to owning their narrative in a positive?
To know that everybody comes with the story, regardless of our title, number of years of service, seniority, none of it matters. Because if I've experienced workplace trauma, personal trauma, anything, it's a part of who I am. I show up with all of that in this body. Like we say about students that come to school, they come with it. Whatever their houses has, that's our baby.
Yep.
But we have to educate and look past it and over that. As a leader, when we're dealing with people, we have to often remember our own biases, right? Think about why this person is this way. And that's the beautiful part about industrial organizational psychology. Many organizations are built based on your degree, whatever those words are. But effective teams and departments look at people. And it's people say people first. Well, that means a lot because the people are your most productive and most valuable asset to any organization. So as a leader and you understanding that you have to be bold, own what you're bringing to the situation, you have to believe, you know what, this isn't the greatest or the strongest or this moment they're not where I want, but I believe they can.
Yeah.
And I'm working as a leader to create the environment where they can be. Not trying to change the people because everybody has to be bold on their own, but as a leader, let me put these things in place to foster the best environment I believe we can have.
Yeah.
And even if I don't all the way believe it and see it, that's my goal. I believe we can be stronger. I believe we can be better. Not like a task to get out there and get it, but more of collectively, what can I do as a leader to believe in my team, to believe I'll believe in myself.
Right.
And my abilities to lead a team, then believe that my team can do it. All whatever they come with, she comes in late, he don't come at all, he missed the meeting, all of that, and know that it's okay. Because what we're going to do in our environment, in our collective environment, is leave this stuff behind. That's how you performed last week. I believe in you. And have those conversations about the people and not our biases stepping in a place that allows us to go like, yeah, I knew that. They were in this department and that happened. And that people are human and we all change and we all have the ability to change and be stronger. So when you're thinking about organizationally, whether you're a small group and it's 2 of you in the office or you have 500 people that you support, and I didn't say supervise, 500 people you support, you own where they are, you accept where you are, and your job is not to focus totally on them. Your job is to look at how you are being bold and being that example that will allow somebody else to be bold, that will allow somebody else to be bold. So it is a process. It's the ongoing process.
Well, and there's there's so much power in the process. And I have witnessed you do this. You do this by nature. It is how you approach life, not just work, but life, because you do want to believe the best in people and then equip them to be able to thrive in that space. And I think that's the difference that I want the listeners to understand is it's not that you're fabricating something. You are creating the right fertile soil for whatever is going to come up to come up. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be some weeds, right? Some things that grow that you did not intend to grow, but you tend the garden. You create a space where people can continue to go, oh yeah, well, that didn't go as well as originally anticipated, but
Right.
try that again. So what's the decide part? Because that to me is the culmination. So let's put it in context of a team. So I believe that this person who has been chronically late is going to do better. So I'm owning the fact that I have never asked this person what time they have to drop off their children. So I'm going to own that and I'm going to have a conversation. Denise, I love that you have these beautiful children and I'm just curious, what time do you have to drop them off? Oh, I didn't realize that you had to drop them off at 8 and you're supposed to be here at 8. That must be really hard. Let's shift your timing, right? That's the leave the preconceived notion. But then what's the decide? What do I do from there?
Deciding is the closure, right? Because deciding means come to a resolution in the mind as a result of a consideration. I'm deciding to come to a conclusion as a result of the consideration. So what am I deciding to do? Deciding gives you the power back, right? So if you've owned your fears and your narratives and those not positive experiences, you can decide, I've come to a conclusion that this is the resolution I seek and not that.
Got it.
So no matter what it looks like previously, what you've experienced, when you decide, like when I decide I'm going back to drinking a gallon of water, my first opportunity, I'm doing the first 25 ounces before 9 a.m., right? It's a decision. You make a conscious decision to tell your brain, today, this is what we decide. So that's why they always often say how you start your morning is how your day goes.
Yeah.
And you're advised not to watch the news or jump on social media when you first wake. I don't even watch the weather when I first wake up because what happens? Oh, we're going to have severe thunderstorms today. So all day in my mind, where are my candles? If my lights go out, I just went to the grocery store, my food's don't spoil, da-da-da. From the weather report.
Yeah.
Nothing tragic, but because we are conditioned to create a plan, our brain wants to plan, we have to allow and decide, wait a minute, hope the storm, okay, it's supposed to storm, it's probably not going to storm in my neighborhood. I say it all the time. I was like, oh, that's not me. It's not going to happen like that. And whether it happens or not, if I haven't contaminated or dampened my day believing that this is going to be the reality. So it goes back to the belief, right? You have to decide what you want to believe.
Yeah.
You have to decide that this will be the last time or this is the first time. I remember my dad stopped smoking. Like he smoked for years as a kid. And then literally one day he was like, I'm going to stop smoking. So he's like, yeah, right. Okay. People say that all the time. Stopped.
Wow.
Never took another. And I was like, and that was always fascinating to me. And I remember like recently, well, before he passed away, I said, Daddy, remember when you said you were going to stop smoking? And he said, yep. I said, how'd you do that? And he was like, Denise, I just made a decision. And I was like, the power of the mind.
Yeah.
He decided that he no longer wanted to do it. And I think in a situation for us, as we become bold, we have to decide, I may fall off today. You know what? But that's not my tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because every day we have the new opportunity. You get the new 24 hours. So if we decide that today wasn't my best day, but I'm not going to go into tomorrow going like, yesterday was a bad day for me.
Yeah.
I decided it ended. And now I have the next opportunity. So I'm creating a habit where if I'm having a moment, you know what? I'm through that. That happened at 10 a.m. this morning. It's
That's
done.
it.
And the more you roll it back, the more the brain goes like, wait, leave that. Okay, she's putting something else positive here. Mold that back. Okay, that's changing this. Roll that back. Again, creating the new experiences. Because when we hold it in our bodies, we only have one body. It results in us having high blood pressure, insomnia, food addictions, whatever that is, because our body is trying to cope with the things we haven't let go. So it all circles back to what we're believing, how we're owning the moment, what we got to leave because we've got to press forward, and then making that full decision. I really didn't do that well. Let me see how I can rework that, and decide that you can, because you can. As long as you breathe, you can make that shift. You can decide for something new for you and your teams. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like it needs to come with a healthy dose of grace, because it's probably not going to go perfect the first time either. So going back to the example of the late employee, the decision is to believe that they're going to do better, and to not immediately when it happens again go, oh, well, they'll never get it right. Instead saying, okay, we tried this. Did it work? How's that going to go? So I cannot wait to hear your answer to this question, because to me, this is the epitome of productive joy. But I always ask my guests, what is your definition of productive joy?
I think the definition of productive joy is the bold part of being productive. What you feel when you accomplish something, because joy is an emotion. And so you have to believe that you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to believe and own that it's necessary. Just like if you look at the emotion chart, they all are related to a part of your physical body. And so when they say, oh, people died of a broken heart, because your heart is where your joy lies, right? Or, oh, it's so much on my back, and we carry burdens in our shoulder, right? So it's all those emotions and responses are physically connected to us. So productive joy, I think, is the opportunity to own the emotion that we have, and then leave those things that prohibit us from being joyous. Because it is a decision to make. Making a decision gives your brain some finality, right? It gives you like the answer to something. So I think the opportunity to have productive joy is not just you produce the joy, you own the joy, and you make it your everyday. You make it necessary. Like, I'm required to be joyous today, whatever it looks like. Find the joy in those moments, because not every moment is a dark cloud.
Oh. And even when the dark clouds come, it dance in the rain, right? Like, it's going to be okay.
Joy in the dark cloud. Because if the sun stayed out all day, every day, and there were no clouds, we wouldn't have rain, right? So it's all a cycle, and it's all the opportunity that we have as leaders, as supporters of teams, to look at the employee that comes to work late. They feel horrible that they are.
Yeah.
So even owning that they're trying to sneak in, oh my gosh, I'm late again, that has a weight. But when you have the opportunity to have the conversation, what can I do to support you?
Right.
Would shifting your time from 8:30 to 4:30 be a benefit? They then become like, okay, I believe I can work with that. I can own and make sure I get the kids there on time, so I'm here on time. It recreates the cycle. So your boldness impacts the next. It's like the dominoes are blah, 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 blah. It's that same type of thing. If the leader, if the supporter is that person who creates the environment, others will follow. It's hard for the head to feel and think something else, and the body doesn't respond. If this isn't working, the rest of this doesn't work. Same thing when you're leading teams.
Goodness, I mean, you're brilliant, and I knew this, but I love that you have found a system that's repeatable, that's describable, that is something that others can now own and create as their own. There's just so much power in that. And I know I could talk to you for 2 days and learn all kinds of new things with every conversation, but I am so darn excited about these rapid fire questions, because every one of them is going to be fully related into being bold. Are you excited? Because I am.
I'm here. Let's do it.
You are stoked. Okay. So first question, simple. What is your definition of fun?
The definition of fun is that thing that takes my mind away from work, family, stuff. Like, anything that takes away the stuff, that's fun to me.
Yeah.
So that could be watching cricket. That could be fishing. That could be sitting on my porch. in the moment, whatever it
Something
is.
that takes your mind away. Well, and I know you happen to do that all over the world in really exotic and fun places.
That's true. This is
Right,
true.
like the cave crawling that you do, or the sitting in a hot spring somewhere, or whatever it is. That's awesome. Well done. Okay. So, how do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
When I walk away from the experience and I'm not second guessing or questioning myself. So I always tell people it is what it is. What I say at the front door, I say at the back door. But I also know that when I walk away and I know that my intent and motive was pure and there was no intentional stuff or harm, because when you push the shots fired, but when you do it immediately. And so being mindful, like if I can walk away from it and be okay. Now that doesn't mean I may not have to go back to just rewind, but I showed up as my authentic self, and in my moment, maybe that authenticity was too much for that moment, and it would require that I do a. Let me restate this. Let's revisit this. But yeah, that's all I know. That's all I know. When I can walk away and be like, check the mark. That made it.
Well, and knowing you do show up authentically in all spaces, and I don't think it's ever too much. I think what I'm learning in my old age is that we are a gift, right, to others, but we're not the right gift for everyone. And we don't all want the same things. And so it's okay to recognize that I might not be the right gift in this space. And my authentic reaction to what's happening right now might not be the right gift in this space. And that's okay. That does not
Owning it.
That does not
You're
make me
owning it.
wrong. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
Yeah, you're owning it. That is the key. Own that. That might not be what they need right now. And be okay saying, hey, can you step back? Because what I have may not be, they're having steak and I'm bringing in sushi.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's that systems two recognition, right? That's that knowing yourself well enough to know, oh, yeah, probably not. And we've all worked with and for people who don't have that filter and show up and push and bully their way into all spaces in the name of authenticity.
Right.
And that's no more authentic than it is just bully, like being bullheaded. Like there's a difference.
And their bulliness comes from an experience or a narrative where they had or they weren't, or they were bullied, right?
Yeah.
You're repeating a hurt people. It's that cycle. So if I've been bullied in my workplace before, now that I'm in charge, that behavior is somewhere in your brain. And that's where you go into your system one, system two. Am I reacting to this moment, or am I allowing something to paint this moment, right?
Yes, that part. Okay, so this should be fun too. How do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Milk cookies and getting back in bed. No.
Start.
Yeah. No, I think when I'm having those days where it goes like, ugh, I try not to let it be a day. I try to contain it and take a moment like, wait, this is going off the rails a little bit. Let me see why.
Yeah.
Is it how I physically feel? Is it something I heard? And I try to diagnose where it came from.
Yeah.
And then I make a decision. Happen.
Yeah.
Not always happening, but the more that you do it, your body, you begin to go like, wait, something was happening the other day. And I said, wait a minute, where do I feel that?
Yeah.
Was my body being oversensitive and hyper to the moment? Did I feel it in my stomach? And when you start tracing, allowing your brain to show you where it is, then you can start unpacking. Because sometimes you get reactive and it's hot. But no, let me think it through. What happened?
Yeah.
Why do I feel this way? What does my brain remember about this that causes me to respond this way? So
what I hear from you, Denise, the thread that goes all the way through is being bold requires being aware of who you are and what you're doing and where you are in the space and what's causing it so that you can decide how to react to it. And that to me is the crux of all of the beautiful things that you're saying. So I have one more question for you.
sure.
If people can only remember one thing about all of the beautiful things you've said during this podcast, what's the one thing that you want them to walk away with today?
you are all bold, right? In the opportunity to believe in yourself, to accept and own what you would call as your deficiencies or your areas of growth, to leave those things that keep you from your greatness, and bolding up to say, I decide to change it and I'm changing it today. And if you have to repeat that again, I'm changing it today. And that means tomorrow. And I'm changing it the next day. It's just the consistency of knowing that you don't have to be loud to be bold. It is a personal self-reflection journey, because your brain has to believe. You have to own your stuff. You got to leave your fears behind. And because decision making helps the brain bring closure, it continues to allow you to grow. So that would be my last one.
I think that those are really good last words, my friend. And so for all the listeners, y'all, this was a masterclass in all things brain research and why we react the way we do and what we can do about it. And what I appreciate most, Denise, is that you gave us something very practical that we can turn around and use. And so if you're listening right now, I always say, I hope that there's a nugget or two of wisdom that you are grabbing from this podcast. Well, y'all, you weren't listening if you didn't get a couple nuggets of wisdom out of this.
Christy, if they didn't get all of it, join me in New Orleans. Literally before this podcast, the contract came through for Be Bold 2025. We will be in New Orleans the weekend of February 15th through the 18th. So it's President's Weekend. So if you're off on Monday, why not come? Got an amazing hotel rate, an amazing park, 2 blocks from Bourbon Street.
Oh my goodness.
So tons of fun. So we will have Be Bold 2025 in New Orleans again this year, and just excited to expand the opportunity to go deeper in our self-reflection and allowing each of us to own how we decide to show up, right? Listening to you, like Christy always, clear as kind. Be kind to yourself. And as you're being kind, you can find your boldness. So join us in New Orleans. The website will go live on June 1st.
Okay,
maybe
so right after this airs, that will be the case.
Yeah.
So Denise, here's my question. How do people find you before that website launches? Or let's tell the website first, and then what email would you like them to use to get in touch with you?
Sure, you can go to www.denisyrupert.org, and you will find a link to Be Bold. You will find some more nuggets about being bold, and just an opportunity to think through what life looks like. So it's my middle initial and last name.org. And then from there, it'll take you to the Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Tumblr, all of those things.
Fancy pants. I'm so excited. Cannot wait to join you in New Orleans for Be Bold. And
yes.
Learning more from you, Denise. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and you're willing to share it, which is the best part. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with my listeners and just being on Productive Joy. It was perfect. So listeners, you got another nugget right before we left, which is don't miss this opportunity. It is going to be epic. And I just really hope that you find something from our conversation today that will turn fun into action.